Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us with our webinar this evening with Dr. Neil Warshawsky. We're going to wait maybe another minute or two and then get into what you came here for, to listen to Dr. Neil, a clinician, actually speak about direct print aligners and what he's seeing in his practice. So bear with us for just a minute or two, let some more people join, and then we will get rocking and rolling. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Got a lot of good content to share with you this evening. First of all, I want to thank everybody for joining Voxel Dental here with Dr. Neil Warshawsky, the futures here, direct print aligners. Voxel Dental is really excited about this innovation. I've been doing a lot of testing for a few years, and as much as we can talk about it in terms of workflow, we're excited to have Dr. Neil Warshawsky join us from a clinician's perspective. I think he's actually in the LuxCreo building this evening. Dr. Neil Warshawsky is born and bred Chicago native. We were actually just talking about the Cubbies. He attained all his college training from the University of Illinois, where he earned a total of 5 degrees, culminating in his orthodontic certificate. Dr. Neil leads a world-class staff at Get It Straight Orthodontics with 4 locations spread across the city and suburbs. Very high energy, dynamic practice, concentrates on delivering customized orthodontic solutions in comfortable, inviting atmospheres. When he's not in private practice, Dr. Warshawsky is an associate professor of orthodontics at the Craniofacial Center at the University of Illinois Health Center. With more than 18 years of cleft palate team experience and a vast knowledge of 3D imaging, he manages a large majority of the craniofacial cleft palate orthodontic cases. Dr. Warshawsky feels very fortunate to have the opportunity to practice orthodontics and enjoys the ability to give back routinely at the university and place that makes a difference where it matters most. Lastly, to stay current, Dr. Warshawsky is on the road speaking some 40 plus times a year, literally around the world on a number of subjects, including building clear aligners, lingual orthodontics, and the use of fixed skeletal anchorage for more efficient mechanics. More than 18 articles published and several clinical trials current at any given moment. Dr. Neil stays busy outside of work. He's an assistant scoutmaster for Boy Scout Troop in Glenville, Illinois. When he's not working, he may be found at home with his high school sweetheart or one of their 3 kids, or fishing at the cabin in the northern woods of Wisconsin. So, Dr. Neil, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're excited to hear what you have to say on this new technology, and I'm gonna throw it over to you for what everybody signed up for. So, take it away, man.
All right, thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Happy what's day? Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, so I am just moving my screen around here. Hang on. I should be about to present. Come on. Sorry. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is kind of a fun subject to talk about, and it's a little edgy, and it's moving pretty quickly, and I have to tell you that I waited a long time to get into this concept of direct printed appliances. And I'm really excited to talk about it. So here we go. So a little bit about myself. I started my practice from scratch. I went to the University of Illinois. I'm public school educated. I now work at the University of Illinois in the Craniofacial Center, and I run the orthodontics for that center. But in addition, I have a private practice called Get It Straight Orthodontics. So, so I kind of have a crazy job. On any given day, I could be, in my private practice, I can be in an operating room, I can be in the clinic, I can be on the road lecturing. It's getting crazier as I get older. Anyways, got a couple of kids. One's in orthodontic school. I think he's probably on watching me right now. One is a practicing lawyer. She is starting her second year as a litigator, and my third is at University of Indiana, studying informatics, where he's going to probably be able to hack my checking account. But when I'm not working, I'm still doing digital things, whether it's photography, designing appliances for the office, hanging out at our cabin, barbecuing. I'm just a guy who just enjoys what I enjoy. So if you ever come to visit us in Chicago, most people know the Chicago Cubs. We are a short walk from Wrigley Field. Left field is bordered by Waveland Avenue, and my office is on the corner of Waveland and Ashland. So truly, when I tell you, like, the Cubs are lovable losers, and I've been stuck with them my whole life, but I do absolutely love being a Cubs fan, and I'm very passionate about it. So I really wanted to talk tonight about what's called digital disruption, because you have to understand how this concept works to see how it's going to apply to the orthodontic industry in the very near future. So when we talk about printing, some of us have printers and some of us don't, but a lot of us really understand the concept of digital disruption from a different angle. And it's not from the angle of being an orthodontist, but I want to show it to you from the angle of being a music lover. So what did I love to do when I got my first, stereo? I would just sit in my room and just listen to albums and over again. So I want to show you that one of my favorite albums were the Red and Blue albums by the Beatles, right? Now, this was pretty much a good collection of their greatest hits. I would wager to guess that most of us probably had these albums growing up, or at least are aware that they exist, right? But as luck would have it, albums would get scratched, and, you'd have to go buy another copy because it would skip. And then one day something happened. They came up with another format, and it was called the 8-track. Yes, that is the Blue album on 8-track. I know, it's kind of funny. And, in the 70s, vinyl albums were all the rage, right? And then suddenly this thing called the 8-track suddenly was small and it was portable, and you could play it in your car, and it like opened up a whole new world, because suddenly you can bring your music with you. You weren't stuck with what was on the radio. But the 8-track was kind of a wonky device, and it didn't always work, and sometimes they broke. So as music evolved, so did the 8-track, and it became, yes, the cassette. I'm sure if you're at all close to my age, I'm in my late 50s, you would not be surprised to hear me say that this was one of the posters that was on my wall growing up as a teenager. It was just like the ultimate sign of being cool was to have the Maxell poster on your wall, because everybody used Maxell cassettes. So, and this is what I lived my high school years on doing. Somebody would buy an album. I'm like, bring it over so I can record it. I would record it on a Maxell cassette, and then I'd be able to put it in my favorite device, which was my Sony Walkman. That is actually my Sony Walkman, which I still have. It's a little banged up, but it's kind of, honestly, it was the thing that I loved the very most in high school. And I got it for free because I traded I think I traded a bike for it with one of my friends. So it was kind of funny. Now, if you are Guardians of the Galaxy fan, that's what the main character would listen to all his old 70s rock and roll with. So it became popular that way too, right? So just a little bit of trivia for you. So anyways, the cassette then got replaced by the compact disc in the 90s, and that compact disc absolutely killed the cassette, and the cassette went away. And the compact disc became very popular. It was in cars. It was, in your home. Like if you were fancy, maybe you had a compact disc player that played more than one disc. But then eventually, what happened was the iPod came out around 2000, right? And suddenly, you see the head of Apple walk out on stage, and he's like, "Look at this device. It's the size of a pack of cards, and yet it holds an entire catalog of music." And with that, he captured the world with the iPod. And Steve Jobs changed the world with one speech. It was pretty fascinating, right? So, like anything else, the iPod went through its innovations. It got smaller and lighter and became more portable. And maybe, you would jog with it or swim with it, whatever. And digital music became like a commodity. And then, Apple had a store where you can buy songs. It was pretty amazing, right? And like they created this whole commerce out of nothing. Well, in 2018, the CDs were done, like any other digital disruption, because the next greatest thing that was coming after the CD was digital downloads, and digital downloads killed the CD, right? So now iPods are dead. So, they're kind of retro. Most of us have them, but, they actually don't make the iPod anymore. But that was kind of the patron of the digital music industry. It's funny when you look at if you're old enough to know what Radio Shack was, this was like the back of the Sunday newspaper from like 1987. And you look at everything that's on the newspaper here, and what you're going to realize that everything that Radio Shack is now, it's now actually available on your telephone for free. And it's just kind of the way the world changed. So I tell you the story about digital disruption of music because when you talk about direct printed appliances, right, such as direct printed aligners, this is the next digital disruption for our orthodontic world, right? And it's not a question of whether it'll happen or not. It's not an if, it's a when, right? Because in the digital world, we know for a fact that things just change and they evolve. And it doesn't make sense that we would use something our whole life because better things come out. One of the biggest reasons why digital direct printed aligners are coming simply is because it's faster. Okay. And I'm hoping that I'm going to show you a little bit about that through my presentation tonight. So, my evolution on this was because we had to print a device that I'm working on that's coming to market that's sort of a class 2 corrector. And I needed a direct printed appliance manufacturer to print this. And I didn't like a brand called Graphy. It was too hard to print and it was too, the material wasn't predictable enough. So I didn't like that. And I kept looking. And when I started to do my homework, what I realized there was this company I'd never heard of called LuxCreo. Not that I should know about everything because I don't, but they actually have the first patents in this space. So I made it my business to kind of get to know them a little bit. I made some phone calls. I got to know, who the players were, and then I made some phone calls, and I actually got to pretty much to the R&D guy. And we were chatting a little bit, and then, he made a comment about Chicago, and I'm like, oh, that's so funny. I'm like, I live in Chicago. He's like, yeah. He's like, I live in Oak Forest. I'm like, Oak Forest. I'm like, that's here. He's like, yeah. He goes, we're building this brand new technology center. It's going to be in River North, Chicago. I'm like, oh my God, my daughter lives like 2 blocks away. So this became very personable for me. So like, suddenly like I'm like, this is going to be fantastic, right? So this what I want to tell you is this is an entire system from the ground up. This is a company that took a concept and actually created the solution, right? They took the concept of direct printed appliances. They made their own resin, they made their own printer, they made their own wash system, and they made their own curing box. And as a result of that, this is an end-to-end solution. Now, it can use other materials from other brands. I'm not saying it can't, but what I am telling you is this stuff is really very effective. So when you're talking about like, you know, should I buy a printer? Is it kind of like a toy? Is there a real purpose for it here? How are we going to use it? These are the questions, like basic questions you want to ask yourself. Like, how am I going to use my printer? What am I going to make with it, right? Does it matter, that it's 50 microns of resolution versus 100, right? Which technology, DLP, whatever, which technology will be best for what I need, right? And how fast does it need to actually print? Like, what if I have a little office? Like, what if you're in New York and space is a premium and you don't have a lot of space? Like, is it a small footprint, right? Can my staff actually learn to use this thing, or do I have to be? And most importantly, is will it pay for itself? I'm going to save that last question to the end because I'm going to show you how practical this is, okay? So I really want to talk a little bit about clear aligner workflow, right? So if you're making a clear aligner, and I'm bringing this up because this is the fastest, hottest, most aggressive growth in the orthodontic space for the next 10 years is going to be clear aligners, right? Bands and brackets are relatively static, okay? They're there. We know they're there. They're consistent. On the other hand, I think it's interesting that the clear aligner industry was about 1.5, $1.4 billion during COVID and back in 2020. This year it's about 4 billion, 2024. By 2030, it's going to be upwards of 30 billion. This is really an aggressively fast-growing industry right now. This is what consumers want. This is where a lot of the newer graduating orthodontists are really concentrating on learning to do a lot of clear aligner therapy and be effective with it. So it's really like a hot topic. So when we talk about appliances, we want to know how long does it take? How fast are you going to turn it around? What's the cost to produce per piece? And how thick is the aligner? So the top line here, if you follow this is conventional thermoform clear aligners. You meet your patient, you get a scan, you do a treatment plan, you print the aligner on a printer. It then goes into a power washing system of some sort. From there, some of these systems have ultrasonic, some don't. And from there, it goes into a curing box. So then the model comes out. You rinse it off with some water, maybe. Then you're going to block out your undercuts. You're going to manually trim the model to make sure that it's flat. Then you're going to blow you're going to make sure that it's clean. Maybe you put a separating agent on it. Then you're going to take a fancy piece of plastic. So I'm showing you that like my plastic of preference for tooth movement is Zendura FLX at about $4 a sheet. So you put this on a fancy press, it's going to blow it down, then you're going to trim it out, and then you're going to polish it, and then you're going to deliver it to your patient. Now that workflow takes us roughly about 3 hours, okay? Now, I think there's economy of scales when you're doing more than one at a time. But in a directly printed aligner, the path from beginning to insertion is just shorter. So basically you scan, you go through a piece of treatment planning software. Sorry about that. And then after you treatment plan it, you will print the aligner. You will wash the aligner. You will heat cure and then infrared cure the aligner. Then you will, sorry about that. Then you will take off the support struts and buff the edges. And then lastly, you'll deliver it to the patient. In real time, it's about an hour less to manufacture versus thermoforming, okay? In ecology speech, like in terms of garbage that you generate, there's no model being printed. There's no excess plastic being cut off. There's only the support struts that are being removed. There's just less garbage. So this process of printing, washing, thermoforming, packaging This was our preferred method of fabrication for mild to moderate cases up until about 4 months ago. I've now switched to a direct printed aligner for these mild to moderate relapse cases for two reasons. The more important one is our life cycle is just much shorter. From the time we scan you to the time we deliver you is usually about a week, sometimes less. I'll show you a story later in my webinar here where a patient from yesterday received their stuff this morning. But in this scenario, we had a lot of work to do. We had to print the models. We were going through a lot of resin. It gets expensive, And I think, at the end of the day, you have to kind of figure out, what are the costs really associated with this. So Bill Lehman is a friend of mine. He and Ruz Khusravi and Pramod Sinha had written a little article back in 2022 in Seminars in Orthodontics, and they talked about the cost to make 3D printed appliances. And in an in-office setting, they compared direct printed aligners with thermoformed aligners. Their bottom line was that they thought that on average, and Bill likes to talk a lot about this. He loves to talk about the economics of this. And Bill's a lean and mean little practice down in Florida. And he lives and breathes this all day long. That if he's thermoforming an aligner, it's about $15.90 an aligner, so less than $16. If he's direct printing an aligner with the LuxCreo workflow, it's running approximately $12.50 to make an aligner. So in real numbers, about $3.50 less per aligner. So you can do the math here to figure out how many aligners you build in a month, and then multiply that by $3.50 to figure out how much money you're saving when you do direct print. So let's dive a little deeper into this. Again, our clear aligner workflow is somewhere around $16 an aligner. It takes, roughly speaking, about 3 hours to build an aligner, okay? That aligner is a uniform aligner. It's one thickness, okay? It's not possible to do multivariable thickness, right? When you have to place attachments on the teeth, you're going to have to print a separate template to make your composite attachments stick to the teeth as well. So this workflow, if you will, is going to take you, roughly speaking, probably closer to 4 hours, if you're talking about a 10 tray case to build, okay? It's going to take some time to build this stuff. Now, if you want to take a shortcut and you don't want to be the lab, you can have a lab build the trays for you. And I'd say there's lots of labs that build clear aligners now, and you can probably get a local lab to produce aligners for you anywhere from $22 to $30 an aligner. And if you didn't get a local lab, you could order, piecemeal aligners from companies like Align and Spark and some of the larger vendors as well. One of my biggest gripes about aligner therapy is the amount of garbage we produce. We produce an incredible amount of garbage. Every piece of FLX plastic comes delivered in a vacuum pack. So there's a foil package that's being thrown away. In addition to that, every time you make an aligner, you have to cut it out. There's plastic waste from the edges. You're going to ultimately throw the model away as well. So there's just a lot of garbage all the way around here. With a direct printed aligner, the only garbage you're going to create is the support struts that you take off after the aligners been cured. So there's just a lot less garbage, if you will. So I want to know is, can we bend the rules of manufacturing, still produce aligners, but produce them faster, better, and cheaper? That would be my goal to try to compete in today's competitive business environment. And I'm sure all of you guys can appreciate that. So in the direct printed market here, if we're building trays in under 2 hours, we're talking about 12.5 bucks an aligner, roughly speaking. We can build multi-variable thickness aligners. They don't have to be uniform thickness. So we can make the trays fit tighter around teeth with rotations, right? Which means we can use less attachments, okay? And believe it or not, without question, they're going to fit more accurately. So the direct printing aligner workflow is just pretty straightforward, right? It's just a fast concept. You import your data, you generate a model that goes into Lux Design, you turn it into an aligner from a model. You then 3D print that using LuxFlow. You then take your stage and you remove your supported aligners, and then you wash them in alcohol, either using what you own or the matching equipment that LuxCreo has created. Following washing, you will heat cure the aligner, and that's to lock in its properties, and then you will UV cure the aligner to finish the cure of the appliance itself. At that point, then, you tear off the support struts, very similar to Velcro, polish just the edge where the support strut was because the aligner has printed polished already, and you are good to go and you can deliver. So if you watch this, you can see the aligner gaining its shape as it's sitting in a warm bath. So what's really unique about this material is its properties are reversible, and that you can recharge your appliance simply by putting it in hot water, actually boiling water, for about 3 minutes. By doing that, not only does it regain its shape, but if you are smart enough to drop a little cleaning tablet in that at the same time, it's a 2-for-1. You can clean your appliance and you can recharge it, if you will. So some of the better features here to focus on is that direct printed appliances just fit better. There's no question they fit better. And when they fit better, they're going to be more efficient in terms of making the teeth move. So I want to be a little curious about this. And I'm going to say that I can do something with a direct clear aligner, DCA for short, that I can't do with thermoforming, which is I can actually get a patient to convert and then flip the case and deliver within probably 24 hours with almost no hesitation. So really what we do is we engage the patient, we scan them, we treatment plan them, we build the aligner. Now here's an option for you. Just build 3 trays. There's no reason why you have to build the whole case, especially if it's a teenager. If it's a teenager, I only want to build no more than 10 to 20 trays. I'm going to rescan it within 20 trays because I just don't believe that teenagers are necessarily going to be able to, even if they're a good patient and they wear it all the time, I'm just not convinced that the teeth are fully erupted when I meet them. So part of the problem that we've seen is if we build the case up front, as the teeth are erupting, it's reasonable to think that I'm going to get more tooth surface exposed by the time the case is starting to come to its final completion. So from a practical standpoint, I want to make sure that if I put somebody in aligners, I give them a chance to develop a little bit and then get a second scan to make sure that everything is accurate. So the 4D aligner concept isn't just that it's a 3D printed aligner. The fourth dimension here is thickness. This is what makes this so fascinating. Changing the thickness of the aligner unquestionably, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, it unquestionably becomes a more efficient appliance for moving teeth. And the thicker it is, the more stubborn it is. It won't deform, it'll hold better, it will hold rotations better, it will perform better, right? The one-click workflow refers to the fact that there's a process in the software now called one-click. One-click is what takes your models that you generated, like I generate in a software called ULab, right? And then I import all my models into one-click, and I create my aligner shells from that. And it takes about 4 minutes to do a batch of aligners. So here it is, just really quickly, you can see us printing. She's taking the stage off, puts the aligners in to wash. They're coming out of the wash into the heat cure. That takes a few minutes. Then they go into the infrared cure for final finishing, and there you go. All done. Less than 2 hours start to finish. Cost less than $5 an aligner and material. Now, that may sound expensive, and it's really closer to 4, okay? But what's important to understand here is we're not printing a model, because I already had $4 worth of material in FLX, plus I had another $1.50 to print a model, plus the time to print a model. So this is absolutely a faster process. If you concentrated just on relapse cases, now I'm gonna tell you from a practical standpoint, this is the sweet spot of this printer. I don't want to see you doing 30 and 40 tray cases. You can, but I'm going to tell you where you're going to make your money are in the 2 to 10 trays. That's where you're going to make your money because they're really simple moves. People are happy to do it. They're done quickly. They talk positively. It's a win-win-win. So if you do 2 cases, and this is a really simple math process. If you do 2 cases, right, there's roughly speaking about, so in this case, we used a brand of software called Titan, and it's $45 to use the Titan software, okay? So it's $45 for your software. We know it's roughly speaking about $5 for a tray, and my relapse case here has 8 trays, okay? So that's $40 in material. So total treatment between material costs, call it about $170, okay? I charge the patient $2,000 for this mild relapse, but there are 2 cases per week coming in, so we really have $4,000 worth of production for that week. 50 weeks a year yields $200,000 of production. The gross profit per week, is about $3,800. That means your annualized gross profit's about $190,000 in profit, straight to the bottom line. So truly speaking, if you only did really mild relapse cases, not only would you pay for a system probably almost 9 to 10 times over during the course of your first year, but in addition to that, you're keeping your practice, chock full of happy patients. Happy people talk to other people, and that's what grows your practice. Now, if you go down to the bottom line, where you have 20 cases per week versus 2, that's about $2 million worth of work drop into the bottom line. And that's all profit, by the way. That's not the cost. So I want to show you a couple quick cases just to get an idea that it works, okay? First case I'm going to show you are some pesky lateral incisors, right? It's a class 1, bilateral class 1, right? Both sides, mild upper crowding, minimal lower crowding, normal overbite and overjet. She's previously been treated. Here's her ceph. Here's her pano. You can see she's got, an onlay on an upper second molar and a lower crown. Other than that, not too much dental work. So the picture on the right represents the starting position. That's stage 0 on the left. That's the real image of the teeth, okay? So I think you can understand that both the lateral incisors are rotated to the distal. Here she is at stage 3, correcting nicely. Nothing crazy, just correcting nicely. But what's important to understand at stage 3 is the clinical picture matches my treatment plan, okay? And I only have, 2 attachments, 4 attachments, 2 attachments per side. Not a lot, okay? And that's the whole thing here is you don't need a lot of attachments. And this was the second case I did, by the way. Here's a case. I'm going to show you why I used it. This is Sandy. Sandy is one of my surgical cases. She was signed up to do clear aligner therapy, so I used a commercial brand aligners to prep her for surgery. Took me about 7 months. Had a very nice result, and no, it was not Invisalign, if that's what you wanted to know. But she's a bilateral class 3, right? I took Sandy to surgery, and we treated her for an underbite with a Lefort 1. So that's how she presented. That's her panorex. We did get the wisdom teeth out. Here she is ready to go for surgery. Here she is post-surgery. So when I got the green light that I can treat Sandy, you know as well as I do that it's really difficult to be able to get a clear aligner system back in a few days. It's almost impossible. It's possible, but very difficult. So I decided I didn't need a lot of touch up, but I needed a little touch up specifically on the right side. She was going to redo the crown on that lower left first molar, but beyond that, I just had a little bit of touch up to do. Her occlusion was comfortable. She felt good. I just had a little bit of tweaking to do here and there, just to fix the incisors and stuff like that. So I decided to use the LuxCreo system in order to be able to finish her up. So this is her on aligner 2 of 5, okay? And she's doing great. She's post-surgical. But the magic here was when they gave me a green light to treat her, I had the aligners in her mouth within 24 hours. That was the magic of this system, that I immediately responded and made aligners because she had nothing to wear. Next case I want to show you is a unilateral class 3. This is Raj, happens to be one of the employees over here at LuxCreo, and he's a class 2 div 1 sub left. Very real case, okay? This is a very difficult case. He needs distalization sequentially. He needs to resolve upper and lower crowding. This was him when he started. You can see the overjet. Here he is in his Panorex. And you can see he's definitely class 2 on the left side. So I had designed a treatment plan for him. And in this treatment plan, you can see sequential distalization has created some space between the first and the second molar right there. You can see on the right side of the image. And he was also wearing class 2 elastics. So we got him to stage 6 pretty aggressively. This was the photography we took at stage 6. He's pretty much where he should be. And this was the cone beam we shot at stage 6, showing that the molar actually did distalize and there was space between the teeth. So what was really important to understand here simply was the fact that he was following what we had planned. Now, I will kind of tell you that we were pretty aggressive getting him here because I really wanted to kind of get him out of the gate quickly and get him going. And he was really good about wearing his stuff, but the truth of the matter was he responded. So this is just kind of an idea of how it works. The most important case I want to show you is from yesterday. This is Tia. Tia is a patient that I started during COVID. So during COVID, we put her in a clear aligner system, we put attachments on her, and then she dropped off because a lot of people during COVID dropped off. So Tia's in college now. She was in high school at the time. She was a senior, and now she is a junior in college. And she came back yesterday. I treated Tia as well as her brother. Her mom's really comfortable with me. She's kind of a jokester. So she comes in, she's like, please don't shame me. I know we've been bad. I just laughed at her. I'm like, hey, welcome to the new world. You're not alone, right? So Tia came in, said, I really want to fix my teeth. I'm like, okay, so you know what? I said, no problem. I said, let's just get you scanned. We'll rebuild your case. She's like, yeah, oh yeah, one small snafu. This was yesterday, by the way, okay? I'm like, what's up? She's like, I'm going abroad for school. I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, we'll get stuff ready for you. I'm like, when are you leaving? She's like, tomorrow at 11. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was my homework at 5 p.m. last night at the end of my day, right? This is what her scan looked like coming off our Medit scanner last night, okay? Like she has half an attachment left on her right central incisor, right? But after 4 years of inactivity, she still had most of her attachments in place, which I thought was impressive. Her hygiene was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad. And this is what I did. I designed 8 stages, okay? Each stage is going to be 2 weeks, 8 uppers and 8 lowers. I was able to put them on a single build plate, okay? And this is the print that I put on at 7 o'clock this morning. They were done and cured by 9 a.m. She picked them up at 9:30, and she was at O'Hare by 11 to leave for her college abroad experience. I've never been able to do that before. And this is legitimately today. So you know I'm not lying about this. So I think that's fascinating. And by the way, everything fit perfect. So they were very, very thankful. So, what I like about this system is I'm not seeing a lot of tipping of the roots that I oftentimes see in clear aligner systems. I'm also not trying to do a 4x extraction case. I'm just trying to get my roots under control. And what I'm telling you is I've got much better control because I can increase the thickness of the tray on the undercuts in the areas when I'm most concerned. So around the necks of the teeth and stuff like that, I can make the tray a little thicker. So I actually believe that this system is going to perform better for extrusion specifically. One of the fascinating things that this just kills on is the ability to include a printed hook or button for an elastic as part of your build. So you don't have to attach anything to the aligner. You don't have to put any hooks on your teeth. You just literally make it part of your design and it just prints with everything. That is the most convenient feature ever. And from a thickness standpoint, I think these aligners are incredibly consistent across the occlusion. So I haven't had an aligner not fit yet. I mean, granted, we've probably only done, I don't know, less than 100 cases now, but we've done quite a few cases where there's only just a little bit of touch up, and they're really accurate. One of the things that patients like more than anything else is I believe that you need less attachments, and we are doing less attachments because we can control the undercut better because we can decide whether to fill or not to fill the undercuts. And we can determine the depth of that as well. So I want to switch gears now and talk a little bit about night guards because that's the other thing that I think that this system does very well. Night guards to me are just a source of income. Back in the day, I was the Essex lecturer for Dentsply, and I would do hands-on courses 4 to 5 times a year on how to make a night guard. This is what we taught. We would articulate our models. We would use a 3D printed model if we could do it. It would be on a BioStar or Drew format. You'd have to put the model mounted in the cup, add your lead or stainless steel now beads around it to fill it so it was level and flush. Then after the mounting was protected, we would put this back into the machine, right? And then we would take a piece of Combi-Plast, which was dual layered material, EVA on one side and a polyethyl chloride acrylic on the other. And Combi-Plast would be like 4 millimeters thick before we would melt it. So we would melt this stuff. We'd put it under the heat for like 2.5 minutes. And then we would blow it down onto the model. So you can see 2 minutes and 45 seconds to melt, 3 minutes and 20 seconds to cool. Sometimes we'd have to leave them cool for up to 6 minutes. From there, we would put it in the machine. We would blow it down. Maybe some of you still do this, I don't know. This was a lot of work. You really had to have a trained, skilled person that knew how to do this. You couldn't teach this skill in 30 minutes. It would come out like this. We'd have to cut all that excess off. We would take our second layer, then we would cut it out, and we would hope we wouldn't slip because when you'd cut your hands with this burr, it was really sharp, and it really would be a bloodbath when you would cut yourself. I was good for one or two times a year to cut myself. So as it would come out, we would then have this appliance still too big, but that's okay. And then we're ready to remount the case. We would remount the case, and then from there we'd kind of mark where the occlusion was. We would rough up the surface a little bit. And we'd take boxing wax and we'd box around this appliance. And we would use BioAcryl Ice, which was a non-yellowing ultra hard acrylic for the next layer. This is the third layer of the material, right? And we'd mix it up and salt and pepper it in. Painful to think, this is how we made a night guard. And it would go pressure cure in a heated pressure pot with warm water. It would come out after the cold cured was added. It would come out looking very chunky and bulky. Then we'd go back to a remount, and then we would trim it back into position with an acrylic burr and articulating paper. And at that point, then we would deliver it to the patient. Every once in a while, it would be wildly off, but as a rule, I would say it would fit very well. And our patients loved our night guards. We make a damn good night guard. But it would probably cost me almost $200 to $300 to make it by the time it was finished, because it would take us almost 2 weeks to make. So we have a lot of articulators that are now not being used because everything was always on an articulator in the lab for night guards. But now our workflow is a little differently. It has been for the last couple of years. So a bottle of DNG, which is LuxCreo's version of Direct Night Guard, DNG, runs about $400, $385, okay? 3 things I'm going to tell you about this bottle that you need to know. It prints digitally polished. This comes out printed polished. That's crazy, okay? Second thing, I can get about 80 night guards out of a bottle of DNG, more or less. Third thing, I would be lying if I said it takes me 15 minutes. It's probably less than 15 minutes to make this, right? Because I use a workflow that's pretty quick. So in the old day, you saw how I made it. So on the left image, you see a brand other than LuxCreo. You see the person taking the support struts off the printed night guard. On the right side, you see how we finish a LuxCreo printed night guard. All we do is we snap the support strut off. We refer to the support strut as, it's called a raft, R-A-F-T. Once the raft is off, we take an acrylic burr, we smooth it down, we just pumice it a little bit, and we're done. Because the appliance is printing polished. So as a result, it's pretty fast. There's no glaze put on this, it's just done. So my workflow is a little different, right? So we scan our patient in occlusion. I take my STL file, I load it on a design platform that's AI-based called Automate. It's made by 3Shape, right? And that gives you an option to receive your finished design back in either 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, or 5 to 10 hours. The difference is like $9 versus $14. Once that's down, you're going to take your finished night guard design. You're going to automatically use one click to mount it in LuxFlow. It will print, wash, and cure in under 2 hours, and it's ready to deliver. So we literally scan you on a Wednesday. We deliver routinely on a Thursday. 1 day turnaround on night guards. If someone asks for a second one, we charge them $150 extra. If somebody breaks it or loses it, I can reprint it, no charge. Okay. Here's the math on it. And I'm telling you, my math is high. It doesn't cost me $45, but I'm telling you from a practical standpoint, I'm making up some numbers here. To scan somebody takes 15 minutes. I'm charging $7 because I'm assuming my assistant's $28 an hour. You're going to upload to the cloud. That's going to take 5 minutes, $225 of their time. Cloud design fee is $850 because we're going to wait to 10 hours. Approve and download the final design. That's my time. It's free. Put it on a raft and prep it to print. That's 10 minutes of time, $4.50. You're going to use DNG resin. That's about $5.75 worth of DNG resin for a night guard. Use of the printer is already paid for, but I'm going to amortize it by saying it's going to cost me $10. And then to polish that night guard at the end is going to be about 15 minutes, which is another $7. At the end of the day, it cost me $45 to make. Here's the math. I charge $550. It cost me $45. I make $505 per night guard. We try to do 2 to 5 night guards per day routinely. And I mean this 5 days a week. Okay. So one bottle of DNG is roughly $400. One bottle of DNG produces $40,400 of income. That is not a mistake. That is an accurate calculation. So in real math terms, that bottle produces $36,400 of profit. One bottle produces $36,000 of profit. Your whole printing system is $20,000. So if you figure it's 15 minutes to build this thing, right? You're earning about $1,000 plus per hour making night guards, and this can be delegated. This is absolutely something you should do. I hope you understand that. So, Mark, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Warshawsky. I forgot to mention this up front, but if any of you have any questions in the audience and want to hit the QA button and ask that, we can spend a few minutes at the end here answering any of those questions. And I think it's very interesting, Dr. Neal, how you talked about, how we're currently doing office aligners versus now. Everything in our dental offices over time, orthodontic offices, that we've gone from analog to digital, we've seen benefits from. And as Dr. Neal mentioned, some really cool benefits of the fit and some things you could do to the actual thickness of the material as well to achieve the tooth movement that you're looking for. But we really do feel that this is the next stage at Voxel and working with doctors like Dr. Warshawsky to bring this technology to the orthodontic space. And the huge benefit that I see, especially in the what you're looking to keep in-house versus still outsourcing to whoever that is, even though I am talking to some doctors who are pushing the envelope on the types of cases that they're treating, is the labor intensiveness of it. That's really where the savings comes, that opportunity cost of having somebody be able to do something else in the practice who's operating this printer, because you're no longer having to, print the model, thermoform, cut, and rough cut, trim cut, polish the edges, do all that stuff. So even though the time may be equal, that 2-hour time frame, it's not that your staff member is spending all 2 hours to 3 hours doing all the steps that it takes under the traditional way of making in-house aligners. So something to think about there. And the other big element, this is actually a whole full webinar, and I suggest strongly, if you ever get to hear Oliver Gillis of OrthoFi speak about the opportunities of these limited treatment type cases, that I'm sure you're taking advantage of some of them now in your practice, but with the orthodontic market as it is, with adult cases being down upwards of 20% this year. Actually, it's like 17, 18% in aligner cases. And if your adult portion of your practice is 20% of your cases overall, that's where we're seeing, it averages out to about a 4% total decrease of your overall practice. So what Oliver will mention to you is that the opportunity to find people that are already in your practice coming to you for these limited type treatment cases that, as Dr. Neal mentioned, you can turn around very quickly for very inexpensive to get the results that you're looking for. There's a lot of opportunity there. And when you look at an orthodontic office, and I won't go into this too much because, like I said, it's a full webinar. We're very fortunate in the orthodontic space that the profit margins per case are, anywhere from, 40, 45%, maybe 50% if you're taking a look at it. But there's a thing in economics, if you follow and you read, called, variable contribution margin. And what that basically means is when you're looking at these extra opportunities to be able to produce in your practice, once you've covered all of your fixed cost, the labor, your staffing, I should say, the rent, the light bill, and everything from that front, all of a sudden, when you pay and you start in that next case, you find these limited treatment cases in your office that you could charge, as Dr. Neal showed, $2,000, but a lot of orthodontists that I talk to charge $3,000, $3,500 for limited treatment. Maybe some of you are higher. When you talk about being able to produce a case at that low of a cost, when you talk variable contribution margin, once you've paid the light bill and start those next cases, orthodontists are fortunate that on that very next case you start, your profit margin on that might be somewhere in the 80 to 90% range. So when you think of a normal $5,000 fee that you're, maybe having out there, and all the cost involved in that from a liner perspective, and what kind of gross margin dollars you might make normally on that case, because you can turn this around, and the variable contribution margin associated with it, if you look for more of these cases in your practice, you're probably making on the limited treatment cases about the same profit dollars as you would on a normal case. So again, that's a whole webinar. More to come on that. If you got any questions, feel free, happy to answer any of that for you. You've been looking at the slide here up on the board as I was on my soapbox about limited treatment. And to all of the registered guests here at on the webinar here with Dr. Neal Warshawsky, we are doing an offer where we are adding another $750 in Voxel Store credit for resins and accessories. If you're curious about the cost of the printer, we can talk about that. You can contact us at info@voxeldental.com. But all in for the LuxCreo system with training, onboarding, some model resin, everything you need to get started in your first year of the LuxPro software, it's $20,899 plus shipping and tax. We do have some opportunities as well with some trade-ins, so you can communicate with us there. And also, LuxCreo is also offering, I know there's a lot of info on here, but if you purchase a system, once you onboard and train, we're going to start communication with you that we will help you with your first 10 case starts, working through LuxCreo with the system. They would love to have a few process photos along the way in this program. But these 10 free cases, they're going to help you design, set up, and they're going to send you where you can print your first couple of aligners like Dr. Neal says he normally does. And then LuxCreo will print the remaining aligners to send to you. There's normally some lab fees associated with these, but like I said, for purchasing here through September 15th, we're going to throw in these 10 free case designs for you to really get a feel for the system, test drive it, see all that it can do, look at the workflow, and help you in that realm there. Next, Dr. Neal. The other thing that I'd love to invite you to, so we're real excited. Dr. Neal mentioned that he's real close to the new LuxCreo Academy, the education center there in Chicago. On the 27th and 28th here of September, they are inviting all doctors to come in. You could scan this QR code to register. They're inviting doctors to come in to their university setting, if you will. We're going to have a bunch of panelists talking, some users there like Dr. Neal to ask more questions, some complimentary gifts. They're even giving away a whole printer system for attendees over there. But this will be a great way, even if you buy today, shall I say when you buy today, for you to get started, get your onboarding and training going, and then continue to advance your training and go get some more hands-on and see some things in action and talk to some users as well, like Dr. Neal. So that is also an offer on the table. So if you scan that QR code, you could register to be in Chicago on September 27th and 28th of this month. Just to mention to you again, we're very excited about this. I appreciate you joining us this evening. Big thank you. If you want to talk to us for a little bit more in-depth conversation, Voxel Dental, we've been printing for over a decade on just about everything out there, even back to our lab days. We were, some of our people used to run the digital workflow at Specialty Appliances. Our founder, James Bonham, used to be a part owner at Specialty. We've learned so much along the way, and we've enjoyed every minute the last 8 years helping support and train new technologies, about 3,000 to 4,000 printers in dental offices across the country, and helping them with these workflows. So email us at info@voxeldental.com with a little bit of contact information, and we can set up some more time to chat on the LuxCreo system, as well as Dr. Neal's got his email up there if you want to ask him any questions as well. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. Chris, do we have any questions, Q&A in the box that anybody has to answer?
We did have a couple. One, someone asked about getting a recording of the webinar. Everyone will receive a link as soon as the recording is available, so just keep an eye on your email for that. Next question is, what is the cost for a bottle of aligner retainer resin, and how many trays can be made with one bottle?
Yeah, so a bottle of resin is going to run about $600. Direct clear aligner resin is going to run $600 per. By the actual kilo, you could theoretically get 140, but with maybe a little residual, probably I'd say 125 to 130 retainers in that $600 bottle. So you're looking at doing that quick math, probably about $5 per.
Yeah, that's the number that we had. We average about $5 an aligner, give or take, which is considerably cheaper than printing.
Yeah. As Dr. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, we do have someone with their hand raised, so I'm going to unmute their mic if they'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
I think they may have dropped off.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, if a question pops up asked after, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Neal or us at Voxel at info@voxeldental.com, and be much more than happy to answer your questions. Oh, we got it answered. The doctor who asked the question, raised the hand, had the question in there that we just answered.
Yeah. Okay, I think that was it for the Q&A.
Got it. Well, Dr. Neal, you must have covered it.
I don't know about that. They all fell asleep.
It looks like we've got some coming up in the chat area.
Yeah,
instead of the QA.
Do you provide resin profiles, and can the resin be used with third-party printers?
That's probably more of a question for LuxCreo. I do not believe at the moment that I don't want to, Mike, I see you asking the question. I don't want to answer that incorrectly. We did get an answer from our LuxCreo partner, Kevin Dillon. Only can be resin, the DCA resin only can be used on the LuxCreo system. All right, Dr. Neal, like I said, you knocked it out of the park, man. They know everything there is to know. The speechless.
Yeah,
with that question. But I wanted to say first off, thanks, Dr. Neal, for your clinical perspective and how this actually operates in the practice for you and your hands. And also want to thank all the attendees for joining us. As mentioned, we'll be sending out a recording for you of this to share with friends, and look forward to chatting with you as you reach out to Voxel at info@voxeldental.com. So thank you very much and have a great evening.